You're good.
I'm good?
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Digibro. I'm the Otaku Gonzo journalist, and I'm here in Rochester because I live here temporarily. And they were like, "Hey, there's an anime YouTuber in Rochester. Let's invite him to Toracon." I don't know if anyone in the city has ever heard of him. Looks like about 10 attendees. And two staff. So, I guess this is a Q&A session. I don't know how many questions you guys are going to have for me, but you can go ahead and get started. Who wants to ask me the first question? Kate Boy was very excited.
Alright, now I mean this jokingly, not like too serious, so prepare yourself. Are you even a big enough YouTuber to justify being here?
Am I a big enough YouTuber to justify being here? I don't know if any YouTuber is just big enough. Or, I mean, it's an interesting question, actually, because like if you're a huge YouTuber, you would think you would only go to the biggest conventions. Like Toracon's what, 4,000 people?
Yeah.
I last presented at Crunchyroll Expo and Anime Expo. Anime Expo being so big it was bad. So, like, arguably you could say if I'm a big enough anime YouTuber, I would have scoffed at the offer for here, and I would have gone to a bigger convention. So, if anything, I must be the exactly right size of YouTuber to be here, which is probably why I'm here. So, yeah, I guess does that answer your question well enough?
I asked because you have that mindset of being like, oh, I'm this niche underdog who's never going to be as good as like my mentor or something like that. So, no matter how big you get, I thought you would always like feel you were never ready or never big enough to go to a convention.
I don't think you have to be that big to go to a convention. I mean, the funny thing about conventions is that the reasons why people come have more to do, I think, with convenience and cost, what they can get out of it. Like, I got paid to come here, so for me, it's not a matter of like, oh, I'm Digibro, I'm going to throw around my weight and be like, oh, I got 350 subs, y'all better take me to Toracon. It was like, literally that guy saw my tweet about Hammer Girl Anime when I first moved here and was like, oh, Digibro lives in Rochester? Well, I'm the guest guy at Toracon, so I'm going to invite him because I like him. So, you know, I'm here because I was, you know, invited by, I guess, a fan, and I live 30 minutes up the road, and they paid me $300 to do 4 hours of work. So that's why Digibro will always show up at the con if it's right here. Now, granted, I will say, I actually don't really like going to conventions for the most part, because when I was a kid, they were really fun and really exciting. Now I'm a lot more jaded. I only really have fun because I get to go as a guest, and I get to treat, like, I mean, basically, the con staff are just, like, at my disposal. They do whatever I tell them. I can just wander around into, like, all the rooms that you're not supposed to go in, and, like, you know, I just flash this thing at everybody. Like, anywhere I'm going, they're like, you're not supposed to be here. I'm like, it's purple. The other ones aren't, right? What do you guys?
Yeah, they're orange.
Yeah, they're orange. So, you know, I just like the power trip. And again, it's literally 30 minutes from my house, so this was pretty convenient. Honestly, I wasn't planning to do any cons this summer because I have a lot of stuff going on, but, you know, it's in my backyard. Is that all?
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? You're Denial, right? Yeah. What's up, Denial? What's up?
So, before you moved to Rochester, you made a video of all the things you were taking with you on your like big road trip.
Yeah.
And I saw that you had Persona 3, but you've never talked about it. What do you like about it?
Okay, Persona 3, the Persona games are a giant weight on my shoulder, like the weight of the world. Because in 2006 or 7, whenever Persona 3 came out in the States, I immediately bought it because I was just big into JRPGs in general. I thought it was the coolest game of all time, had the greatest aesthetic. The opening cutscene looks exactly like Serial Experiments Lane. Like, the directing style of it feels so much like that show. And it had that, like, boogie pop, like, Faust novel thing I'm always talking about, you know. It was like, oh yeah, dark urban fantasy, this is perfect for me. That color palette with all the blues, the awesome music. One of my favorite soundtracks in games, because I bought the game that came with the soundtrack, so I listened to it in the car and stuff growing up. Only ever played about 9 hours of the game to this day. So even though I literally called it my favorite game of all time for years, I still have not played more than 9 hours of it. And every couple of years I try to pick it up again, but like I try to play it on an emulator and it runs really bad. And I try to play it on the PS2 and I'm like, I have to hook up a PS2. And I don't want to do that. The game's long and hard. In the meantime, in the interim, I beat Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. Except I didn't beat it because I got to the final boss and I gave up because it was impossible. But so I'm afraid, basically. I'm afraid to commit the time and energy and livelihood that it takes to play through a 55-hour or so, or more. I just played through Final Fantasy X and that took me like 80 hours. So, you know, I'm not the best at JRPGs. Next question. You with the beard.
What's your favorite snack junk food item?
Snack junk food item. I'm quite fond of the giant thing of Utz cheese balls, and my technique is that I pull off the lid and then I turn it into like a taco, and I scoop out the cheese balls and eat them. That way you don't get any cheese on your hands. Yeah. So yeah, I'm telling you, go home and try it. Everybody laughs when they see me do it, but then they try it and they're like, I didn't get any cheese on my hands. Though if if it's a communal cheese ball tub, you might want to, if you're putting your mouth all over the lid and other people are using the same lid, you might get mono. Just saying. But yeah, would you say that's my favorite snack? I'm asking.
Yeah, it's your most frequent
Okay.
Wegmans run.
I know what I get. Anybody else? You.
Well, first I have a request. Will you judge my 3x3
Oh
that
my
I made
God.
at work?
Thank you. Alright, well, we've got Full Metal Alchemist, Yu Yu Hakusho, Steins Gate, Madoka Magica, Gurren Lagann, Kill La Kill, Fate Zero Psychopaths, and Code Geass. So, I would judge this as Digibro fan taste, because half of my favorites on here too. Gurren Lagann, Kill La Kill, Yu Yu Hakusho, Steins Gate, all Psychopaths. All of those are like in my top 10. So I would say probably you're someone who watches my videos because you tend to agree with me on a lot of things.
I would have actually touched a lot of those if I hadn't seen you make like a video or comment on them in some way.
Oh yeah?
And so I ended up really liking them, so.
I mean, I've made a video and comment about almost every anime that's worth watching, so you're like, what? Didn't I make a video with like 700 recommendations or 250, but it was 7 hours long? Yeah. So, eventually if you just watch every anime I comment on, you will watch every anime of all time, eventually. So Full Metal Alchemist, Steins Gate, Fate Zero, Code Geass, all of these have aired on TV except for Madoka in the West. I don't know, do you watch dubs?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be you probably watched all these dubbed.
On TV, yeah, when it came out.
Yeah. Did you watch Yu Yu Hakusho in the 2000s or
Oh, yeah.
as a kid?
Yeah, like on Toonami.
But you were probably not that deep into anime until the later 2000s. Would you say?
I watched what was on like Toonami and everything, but yeah, not until I was able to get on like Crunchyroll and start it.
Okay, that's what I figured. Just because Yu Yu Hakusho is the only one older than 2005 that's on here.
My man's analytical.
Yeah.
That's what I do. It's a big meme. Anyway, here you can have your 3x3 man. Alright, who's next? Oh, as for my judgment, it's obviously good because half of my favorite shows are. You can go first because I saw you first.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm treading water, but are there any non-anime YouTubers that you just really look at and you're like, they're doing it right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
They're smart.
Well, my favorite YouTuber is a guy called Endless Jess, very good friend of mine. Unfortunately, he's not really that active right now because the internet kind of ruined his life. But he nonetheless is a really phenomenal YouTuber who I've definitely been trying to move in the direction of doing stuff that's like more like him. Just in that, a lot of my favorite YouTubers seem to look at the YouTube video as an art piece. Like they don't just see it as like I'm making an anime review because I want people to click on my YouTube channel. They're like, how do I say something with this that that says something about me as a person? And I've always taken that approach, and I think that a lot of people have resonated with my work, but I've never gone like full tilt on it, like trying to make a narrative out of the videos, because I did want to try to make them more accessible. And I just don't think I was talented enough until recently to go in a direction that some of my favorite YouTubers have gone. Some of the ones who have done a better job of integrating comedy into their work, or like animation or more advanced art forms. Someone like Egoraptor, who did like the sequelitis videos, which had like fully animated segments. And when I got into YouTube, that's what I intended to do. Like, with my first paychecks at my old job, I had got my mic set up, and then I bought a tablet, a drawing tablet, with the intentions of teaching myself to animate so that I could animate like Egoraptor, because I thought you can never be as famous as Egoraptor unless you are putting in that much effort, you know? Of course, as YouTube changed over time, it became more and more apparent that you don't have to put in that effort. You just have to make the most people interested in your video, which you do by clickbait and by talking about relevant subjects, you know? And so I think as more and more YouTubers flooded into the market who were doing that, and a lot of the people who were doing the longer form, more artistic work that YouTube doesn't really reward anymore monetarily, they just kind of quit. Egoraptor doesn't make animations anymore. He makes Game Grumps, where he talks to his friend in front of a video game for 20 minutes every day and makes millions of dollars. So, you know, I kind of saw myself torn between those two different sides, because I've always been more of like, you know, a narratively minded YouTuber. However, I also want to grow because I want to make more money than I currently do. And so for me, it was always like, I need to grow the audience, but then kind of make them all look at my weird stuff. Like, make normal stuff so people will pay attention to me, but then be like, hey, by the way, if you go over here, you'll find some real weird stuff. And, you know, if you're into that, you will like me a lot more than if you're just into the normal stuff, you know? Because when you get into the deep stuff, that's when you get the real connection, you know? But only a few people are into that, and it's hard to find a balance between continuing to cast the wide net, continuing to try to make like populist videos, stuff about current anime that's really popular. Like, obviously I would have a Darling in the Franxx video by now if I really was trying to do like, what is the popular show? What is the one everyone's talking about? Which is what will, you know, help you a lot on YouTube. But I just want to see if there's alternate ways, and you know, the people who I look up to are the ones who have done other things and succeeded. The people who tried to make higher effort videos and actually, like, Every Frame of Painting, which recently shut down, was one of my favorite YouTube channels. It's a film analysis channel that that goes really deep into visuals, inspired a lot of my own work on visuals and anime. They were like, you know, millions of subs, only put out a video every couple of months, and it was like beautifully edited and perfect, and just the greatest video about whatever subject he was talking about you could possibly craft. And like, I look at that and think, have I done that? Like, do you look at my video and think this is the best that anyone could have put this? Sometimes I think that might be the case. Sometimes I'm real proud. Sometimes I'm like, I gotta rewrite this video 5 more times. And sometimes all of those rewrites get released because it's over the course of 2 years and it's me just having the idea again but saying it better next time. So like the most recent video I did, We Have Accepted Mediocrity. It's like 30 minutes of stuff I've said before, but like finally I said it all and I said it right in a way that people would not like go, oh no, you're full of shit, you know, because, excuse my French, I'm not supposed to swear on this panel, I don't think. You gotta come back at night.
This is a Christian convention.
Anime is a strictly Christian hobby.
There is no sin in anime.
No sin whatsoever. It's all puritanical, safe. It's all Hamtaro. It's all exactly like Hamtaro. I don't remember what I was talking about. Next question. Yes, you.
What was your first reaction when you heard a Japanese voice for Goku?
The Japanese voice for Goku? I was just like, why? I mean, I get it. She was the voice actress when he was a kid, and it made sense when you watch Dragon Ball. But then you watch Dragon Ball Z, and you're like, no, stop. And she plays like all his kids too, I think. Like, they all sound the same. Like, Goku and Goten have the same voice in Japanese, and that is not okay with me. I mean, they might in English too, for all I know. To be fair, there's like 6 voice actors in the American stuff.
That's the same reaction all my friends have when I mention, hey, you want to watch Dragon Ball Z? It's in a 30-minute power arc. And they go like, oh, is it done there yet? No, of course not. Okay, watch something else.
That was how I felt when Dragon Ball Super came out. I watched the first episode and I was like, I'll just wait. I know they're going to dub this, so not that I'm like rushing to go watch Dragon Ball Super necessarily, but another question from anybody? You.
So a while back you did an Evangelion series, like we were going through each episode and sort of like doing something different about like what was done in it. I was wondering if you were ever considering continuing that series, or if that's just going to be a done thing.
The thing about the Ava series is that I was not doing it with the intention of it being episodic in the beginning. It was more like I just kind of was watching the show, and anytime I had an idea to say something, I'd make a video, and it just so happened that happened every episode or two. So then I only did up to episode 9, and then I watched the rest of the show, and I never had another idea like that, like for a one episode thing. Because the first 9 episodes of Ava are so tight and dense, and they've got like just they're really well produced. They're beautiful. You know, Guy Max had like a lot of production IG staff helping him out in those early episodes and stuff. Like they look really good, and they're tight. And then you get to the later half, and there's scenes where like Asuka's getting, you know, getting it in the mind, if you will, and she has like this repetitive dream sequence where they kind of just show the same 3 pieces of animation over and over for minutes on end, and it's really intense and stuff the first time you watch it because you're like, whoa, this is going off the rails, this is crazy, like Asuka's losing her mind. When you watch it again, though, and you already know the plot, you're just kind of like, that is 2.5 minutes of my life that I just spent watching Asuka repeat the same 3 animations. So I just felt like the latter half of the show, because of the way that they had to, you know, alter the script as they were going, and the way that they had to sort of, you know, it was a troubled production, a well-documented troubled production, and I just think that the latter half is not as tight and dense with information. It is still really interesting, but I think most of what's interesting about it is self-evident. Like, most people who watch Ava will talk about how great the stuff presented in the second half is. Not as many people talk about the first half, and like those first 9 episodes and how great those visuals are. So to me, it was kind of like, I felt like I was saying something I hadn't heard before when I talked about those early episodes. And I mean, there's a lot out there about Ava, so saying something you haven't heard before is not easy, which is why it took me a long time to even get to Ava in my career. But yeah, I don't know. If I have more ideas on it, I'll continue it. If I watch the show again and I'm like, I was wrong, the second half is great. This has happened plenty of times. The worst thing, it's so embarrassing, because I have all my old blog posts up, and I've been writing about anime since 2007. On my old anime blog, and I don't take anything down because I want people to be able to read it and go, wow, you were so bad back then. This is how much progress 10 years can do to a person, you know, like this is how much better you can get, and I think it can be inspiring to see things like that. So I try to leave it up, but man, there's an old post called "Ghost in the Shell is ugly as sin."
Wow.
It's like, it's a whole post about how much I couldn't stand. I tried to watch Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. I watched like 8 episodes, and I just thought it was like butt ugly, and like I hated the design, I hated Motoko, I hated everything about the show, and I just wrote this huge post about how much I thought it was ugly. And let me tell you, going back to read that is really cringeworthy for me now. That show's like in my top 10 favorites, and I know it's one of the best looking anime ever made. And it's just a difference in like what I was looking for, because at the time I was just looking for like really artsy I was like a huge Shinbo fan. I was big into Moe as well, so like I just wanted cute stuff and crazy looking stuff, not like realistic sci-fi drama. But then I, played Mass Effect and realized sci-fi is cool, and yeah. I don't remember why I'm talking about that, so I'm going to answer another question. Yes.
Do you think the 4th Evangelion movie will ever come out?
I think it'll come out, but I don't think it'll be good, because I hated the 3rd one. I think it'll come out. I think they partially deliberately wanted to stretch it out as long as possible so that the hype would stay alive for so long. Because my theory, and I mean I've talked about this in videos, but if you haven't seen it, my theory is that Studio Kara is trying to use Rebuild to just like make lots of money to put back into anime. Like the whole Japan Animator Expo that they did, where it's like 39 short films, every experimental crazy animator out there, and it's like, how could they have funded this? I mean, granted, I think there was some government involvement on that one as well. But like, I just look at the Rebuild films and I see how Anno likes to take his money and use it towards preservation of the art forms he cares about. He, is putting a lot into helping out other animators. He's got the whole, they did like a museum of miniatures that him and Shinji Higuchi, the guy who co-directed the Shin Godzilla with him, like had this whole like museum of miniatures and they had a scene where a god warrior from Nazca destroys this whole, like, all of Tokyo in miniatures. Like, they created this short film just for the sake of promoting the idea of miniatures. Like, miniatures are so not used anymore. They cared so much about this art form and, like, preserving it that they just were like, let's hype up miniatures, basically, and, like, make a whole miniature town and have a thing come in and destroy it, and it'll be cool. And it is cool. And then they made a Godzilla movie and brought back Godzilla. I mean, so I guess it worked. I guess their short film was so good that they brought back Godzilla after, like, 15 years of no Godzilla movies. So, yeah, good on them. If that's what the rebuilds are helping to make possible, then I'm glad they exist. But man, I think that they are willingly letting it take longer so that they can just market it harder and harder. And every new movie changes all the designs of the characters, so you have to buy 1,000 new toys and all the replacement merch. It's just a little ridiculous, and I'm not a fan. Yeah.
So I was wondering if you had any like anime that you know is bad, you know has no redeeming value, but you still enjoy watching it.
You know, I think if I enjoy watching it, it has redeeming value. Like, one of my favorite anime is Garzy's Wing. It is a 3-episode OVA from the late 90s, directed by Yoshiyuki Tomino, the guy who made Gundam. So you would think it would be good. It's not. It's a absolute train wreck. It is, first of all, the animation is, the show is obviously supposed to be ambitious, but it's like a 13-episode script cut into 3 episodes. It's like, the animation is totally unfinished and slapdash and weird. And then they dubbed it into English, and the dub is just constant shouting. Every character is like, this is the first line. Why do you have to go back to your hometown now? You failed the college entrance exams twice now. It doesn't matter. I will go there, and then I will be back. Rumiko, he stumbles over her name in the first line. His first line of the dub. Like, it's very clear that they've never read through the script before, the voice actors. It's great. It's literally the funniest anime I've ever seen. Like, and I don't care that it was, like, intentionally made that way or not. It is the funniest anime. Like, whether their intentions were good or not, like, the results is something that I would give a 10 out of 10, because it is that good of a viewing experience, you know, like, so I really grade more on that. Like, I would judge a show's worth more based on how much fun I had with it than, like, whether they nailed the artistic vision they were going for, which they definitely did not with Garzy's Wing. Because a blogger I knew came up to the director with the DVD one time at a convention and got him to sign it, and he just looked at it and laughed immediately. So I would say he probably isn't that proud of it, going by that. Because everyone else is coming up to him with, like, Gundam box sets and stuff, and this guy comes up with Garzy's Wing. Alright, anybody, yeah, you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this exactly. Like, is there an anime or is there a point in your anime watching career, however long that has been, where you went from being like, oh, hey, anime is a cool thing, I guess I'll watch it, to being like, hey, I should actually think about this a little more, and I should be conscious of this?
This is going to take a while to answer, I guess, because I have to think about it. Because, I mean, I discovered anime as a little kid. I was like 10. And my first exposure to it was, other than, like, seeing it on Adult Swim, a friend of my cousin, rather. My cousin had a magazine called Anime Invasion. It was the very first issue of this magazine, which was going to be later Anime Insider. It's canceled now. But it was one of the early anime magazines of the, like, boom period of anime getting popular in the early 2000s when, like, Adult Swim started up. And I just happened to get on board right when all that was happening. So kind of my first exposure to the medium was in the form of, like, reading about it in magazines where it's, like, reviews and, like, details about things that were left out in the American version. Like, the cover issue of that Anime Invasion was, like, all the stuff that was censored in Dragon Ball and just, like, pages and pages of stuff they had to cut out of the dub of Dragon Ball. Like, because for anyone who hasn't seen the Japanese Dragon Ball, in that version, Goku walks up to everyone he meets and pats their crotch to find out what gender they are. Had to cut that out. You see a lot of Goku's dick in the early part of Dragon Ball. Had to cut all that out. You see Bulma's tits in the early part of Dragon Ball. So there's a lot of stuff they had to cut out of the dub. Swearing, stuff like that. So that was all listed in this magazine. So for me, right from the start, I knew of anime as, like, oh, there's, like, a hidden, like, the Japanese have a different version, and like there's like a meta narrative going on here of, you know, Pokemon they had a section on Pokemon's 4 banned episodes as well. They were really playing up the whole like, hey, you want to be a cool kid? You want to really know about anime? Well, guess what? You didn't even know that Goku pats crotch, did you? Bam! Throwing that down. Like, that's kind of the attitude the magazine had. It also had a section that was just like an episode guide to Macross, which Macross, you know, is this is also kind of making the same point, because Macross was a, you know, very famous robot show of the 80s that was brought over to America as Robotech, and they changed the episode order and like minor elements of the storyline, and a lot of people hated it, and the original never came out here. So this magazine just has a whole episode guide to the original Macross, just to be like, hey, bet you didn't know, you've been watching the wrong show the whole time. This is the real Macross. Here's what you need to know before you, just because, you know, back then, in order to be an otaku, you had to know Macross, and Gundam, and Ava, and all that crap. So I would say that from the beginning I was looking at it in more of like a meta-analytical way, making comparisons, like learning the history. So just because it was always that way for me, there was never a time where I was just casually watching anime. It was always like an obsessive, I need to catalog and know everything about this. Like, I read that magazine cover to cover, every little piece of text. I even read the address and like where it just names the people who wrote the magazine. I just, you know, I was 10 and fetishizing this glorious access point into a world of things I wanted to know everything about. Anyway, next question. You.
What's your favorite short to come out of Anime Expo?
My favorite
Short.
short? To come out of Anime Expo? What do you mean?
Oh, like
Young animators thing?
Yeah.
Oh, the Young Animator training project. Probably Little Witch Academia. I mean, or did you mean the Studio Kara Animator Expo?
Oh shoot, yeah, that one.
Okay, yeah. The Kara Animator Expo, I actually have not watched most of it. I have been meaning to, but like when it was coming out, I can't keep up with anything that comes out on a weekly basis. It doesn't matter if it's just a bunch of disconnected art films. So I have them all downloaded. I've been waiting to get to them, but I guess currently Me, because it's the only one I've really seen, and it's great. So, and I mean, in the other case, if you had meant the other series, I would have gone with Little Witch Academia, because I'm just a Trigger, Gynax, any Gynax runoff, whatever they make, is probably my favorite show. You know. Yes.
You did a series where you talked about shows you liked in the past but haven't gone back to, like Eureka 7 and all that. Did you ever go back to them, or do you plan to go back to them and like comment on them?
I've gone back to a few, and yeah, it's been an interesting time. The video he's referring to is a video called the favorites I haven't talked about, or something like that, or my other favorite anime. That's what it's called. Yeah. Where I was talking about how for the reason I made the video is that for like 4 years now I've been active on anime YouTube, and the only things I've talked about are things I've watched since then. Like, I never talk about anything that I haven't rewatched except for Cowboy Bebop, and that was only because the video was about how you don't need to rewatch it to remember how great it is. So that was kind of like the message in it. But for the most part, yeah, I won't talk about something unless I've seen it recently and I'm like sure that I still understand it. And I was really bad at following anime for a long time, in spite of the fact that I'm like now known as like anime analysis guy. He knows all the deep things. He clearly must pay attention to the shows he watches. Well, if you were reading my blog back in 2009, you'd be like, does this guy pay attention to the shows he watches? Like half of these criticisms are just because he literally doesn't know what's going on, especially in that Ghost in the Shell post. Like, I literally did not know what was going on in the show because I couldn't pay attention. I just wanted to look at pretty colors and cute girls. But like, over time, as I got more interested in like plot and you know, analyzing the narrative aspects of anime, that was when just happened to be when I started a YouTube channel. So when I look back at those older shows, I think, did I like these for the right reasons? Are these shows that I remember loving because they are good, or because I was I would watch anything that had a cute girl in it, you know? And sometimes the answer is it's way better than I remember or realize. Like every Miyazaki film, I was never a huge Miyazaki fan growing up. I thought of him as like not anime. Like I kind of thought of Miyazaki as like, oh, he's just doing a different thing. You know, this is not what anime is. And now I look at it more like, oh, Miyazaki's the only one making anime. everyone else is making garbage, and this guy is making. This is the only guy who deserves to be called anything special. But you know, that's a more recent development that I got into stuff like that. But I still haven't revisited all of them. Is there any you're particularly curious about? Because there's like 20 shows I mentioned in my video.
Eureka 7, because I actually watched it a few years ago for the first time, and I hated it.
Oh yeah.
I found a lot of the characters annoying. The plot, it was 50 episodes long, and I felt like it should have been like half that length. Felt dragged out.
I mean,
The
these
plot
are all.
really
I've heard all
starts
these
again.
before about the show.
Yeah, so I
fair.
didn't like it.
I mean, the thing about Eureka 7 is the characters do start off very annoying because it's a show that's sort of about the main character getting his ass kicked for like 25 straight episodes before he becomes a man. Like, Ren is this kid who's from he's from some. Like, you've seen the show, but for everybody else here, he's like this snot-nosed brat from some town whose dad was like a big hero, and so everybody has high expectations of him, but he doesn't want to do anything. But he wants to join this like surfer crew who's like a resistance movement, and has this hot girl called Eureka that he's in love with. Anyway, the point being, he joins it, he tries to join the crew and be one with them and get with the girl, but everyone just beats him up constantly for not being good enough. Because these guys are all cool adults with like real lives and, you know, deep concerns. They're fighting battles, and Renton's just some 12-year-old. So I do think a lot of people end up hating him in the early part of the show, but you're kind of supposed to. Like, I think you're not really meant to root for him. You're kind of meant to want these guys to beat him up until the second half when he, you know, becomes a man and starts taking care of Eureka and actually like getting things done. And you're like, man, he's come a long way. But if you just hate him, I can understand why you'd be like, I don't care how far he comes. I
that kind of
don't want
felt
to
bad
watch
though
him.
in the beginning and hated everyone else, and then
I think that's what happens to
and
people.
then-
Because everyone else seems like an asshole at the beginning. They're all just like beating up on him, like really
I think
relentlessly.
Tao's the only character who I wish she got out of there because she's better than the rest of them.
Just because she's hot, like
I actually thought she was
like a better character.
Yeah,
she's pretty cool.
that and like
I think Holland's a great
some of
character
the
too.
plot just like it like stops and starts, and at the very end it's like, oh yeah, here's all the plot. And
I'd have to rewatch the show to give you a more to get into like the nitty gritty of pacing and stuff. I have not rewatched it since to answer your question. You in the back, yeah.
So it's like a completely off track from what we've been talking about, but how do you?
There is no track here.
So it's more likely, you know, with like PCP stuff.
Okay.
But like, how do you find like a difference between maintaining like online friendships rather than like, you know, because you have like a weekly podcast,
Yeah.
where you're with like a bunch of your like really close friends, as so it seems.
Yeah.
What's the difference between like that and like, you know, real human interaction, and like how do you kind of like fit those and like meld those both into your daily life?
Well, my real human interaction is exclusively this girl right here, because all we do is sit in the house and smoke pot all day. So, I'm not supposed to talk about some of the 18+ panel, but none of you looks like you're under 18 anyways. Well, I know you're not, but anyway.
I'm 14. That's not me.
But you don't look like you're 16, though. You could pass for over 18. I was 10, and as a kid, I just was that kid who like ran up to people and went like, I can name the last 10 Nintendo Power covers, and they're like, I don't care. And I'm like, Mario, Yoshi, Link, and they're like, I don't care. And I'm like, what Nintendo? And they're like, I play Sony, I play PlayStation, I have Grand Theft Auto, and I'm like, you kill people in that game. That's scary. And they're like, you're a baby, and I'm like, no. So basically, growing up, I couldn't make any friends because I had weird taste, and so I went on the internet and cared too much about my weird taste. I never learned that you're supposed to just shut up about the things you like and like just, you know, the things that other people figured out never occurred to me. So partly because I moved constantly growing up.
For once, you had to have a reason to defend it.
To have a reason to defend my taste.
Somebody knew what you were talking about.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. On the internet, like I could easily find an anime forum or I started on the internet with the Yu-Gi-Oh forum in 2001 with the name 1111111111111111111. Every time I tried to log in, I had to make a new account because I could never remember how many ones were in my name. So I just redo it every time I had to sign in. I was like 11, and all I would talk about is like I like Exodia the best, you know. My favorite card is blue eyes, Kaiba rules. So yeah, like I wouldn't even say I was good at developing online friendships though, nor that I still am. The only reason I'm friends with the PCP guys is that we all were content creators who were fans of each other in the same community, and particularly in a community, the Brony community, if anyone was wondering. We don't talk about that here.
Huh. All right.
No, we were a bunch of My Little Pony analysts who were doing the show episodically, but all the other ones were really, really bad and cringeworthy, and we were the only ones who were good. So we were all fans of each other, and we were like, what if we had a podcast together, and then we did that, and then all of us decided we wanted nothing to do with the pony community anymore. So we all ran as far away from it as we could, burned all the bridges on the way out, made the entire community hate me, and then ran to the anime community. So basically, the PCP, they are just like a bunch of like-minded creators who kind of, initially all we talked about was making videos. Like the reason we became friends is that we all just do this very unique job no one else has and no one else understands. Like you can't talk to your family about being a YouTuber. They don't understand anything. They don't know, because they don't even have a conception of how people use YouTube. Like your mom thinks of YouTube as, something you watch on a lunch break on like a phone or like for a cat video, like it's really difficult to explain to people what you are doing unless you're in a place where I'm sure here at RIT it would be easy enough to be a YouTuber and people would know what was going on because it seems like there's a lot of nerds here, but but like,
wait, I'm in the wrong place.
We mostly just talked about doing this thing because we couldn't talk to anybody else about it, and also because we were in that unique community, that made it doubly hard to talk to anybody else about it. But once we had this podcast, honestly, we don't even really talk that much. All the younger PCP members are always complaining about how we don't talk enough, and it's just because, again, all I do is smoke pot and watch anime. So I don't want to go on Discord and talk to people. I just want to go watch anime. So the answer to your question is I'm really bad at maintaining friendships online or offline, and no one should take advice from me on how to do it at all. Is basically what I'm saying. Find someone who seems to have a lot of friends if you want to know more about like what online friendship is like. Because I would say that like while I am close friends with those guys, like it's more out of respect. It's more out of like I love their content and therefore I want to be friends with them more so than like seeking them out for whatever. What do friends do? Anybody in here got a friend they can
smoke weed and watch anime?
Emotional support, probably.
Yes, that's it.
So, are they like more like peers then?
Me and my friend just.
I mean, they're I would consider them more friends because we are very close.
Okay.
But we have more friend things when we hang out in person,
Gotcha.
But we also make lots and lots of content when we hang out in person. So it's hard to find time for the friends things because every time we meet up, it's like a $7,000 Kickstarter to make a 90-hour video series that's going to take 3 years to edit. So, anyway, next question. You.
I just want to say I really like your videos. Like your Evangelion stuff is really good.
Thank
you. So like when I watch your videos, I get the impression that you have some kind of relationship with film. Because like I'm watching like things and you're mentioning like cuts in certain places, and I'm like, okay, like do you have a relationship with film like you have with anime?
I do not. Actually, I weirdly have seen very little films, and the reason I have all that film knowledge is just that I watch tons of film analysis. I am a huge fan of like Your Movie Sucks, Every Frame of Painting, Red Letter Media, and like Mr. Plinkett. Just tons and tons of media reviews. I'm a huge fan of the writer Film Crit Hulk, who writes these very long form articles about film. So I could probably tell you what critics have said about any film from the last 5 years, but I have not seen any of them, except for like 3 or 4. So that's why I don't talk about film on YouTube, is literally just that I don't watch enough of them. Like, I made a video about Speed Racer, the movie, like in 2014, and I think that's the last proper video I did on film, because it was the last film I thought, I have something unique to say about this that no one else has said yet. But like, because I read so much film criticism, like if a new movie comes out, I don't need to analyze it because I've already read 10 other people doing it, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's been a while since there's been like a film that was so specifically aimed at me that I felt like I'm the only one who can talk about this, you know? Next, you.
What's your favorite Miyazaki film? Like the one you would go back to over and over and say, yeah, this belongs in the loop.
Wait, my favorite or least favorite? Favorite Ponyo. Ponyo, I can watch over and over and over and over and over again, and it's the most delightful experience in the world. It makes me feel like a child. It makes me feel good and beautiful. It's just it's every image of the movie is satisfying. Like every image you look at, you're just like, oh yeah, oh cool, Ponyo. Like look how cute she is. Oh, she wants ham. Ponyo wants ham. Ponyo loves Sosuke. Ponyo wants ham. And I like literally, she can confirm this. If you watch Ponyo with me, it's just me going like, Ponyo wants ham. Ah! So. That and The Wind Rises, which I feel more, that one's more serious and deep. It makes me cry like a baby. So it's like two different ends of the spectrum. If you want to build me up, you show me Ponyo, and if you want to tear me down, you show me The Wind Rises. And that's like that's my duo, my two-piece of Miyazaki greatness. Did you ask Ghibli or Miyazaki?
Miyazaki.
Okay. Denial.
All right, so. Two things. One's an actual question. One, because I want clout from Wada, Guns, and the Boys, can you give a shout out to Ohio Nation?
A shout out to Ohio Nation.
Nice.
Y'all know what's going on.
And my actual question. Speaking of Ghibli and Miyazaki films, you said in the past so that you could focus on the art, you watched them dubbed.
Yes.
I was wondering what you thought of like the Disney voice actors, because in Ponyo, Frankie Jonas, who plays Sosuke, was 7 when he did that.
Yeah, that's I think they did an impressive job. I mean, obviously, I love the movie, and I've only ever watched Ponyo dubbed. Actually, I've always meant to watch it subbed, but every time I watch it, I'm like, do I want to risk not being able to soak in every image of this movie? You know, the only ones I've watched in Japanese, I think Princess Mononoke. No, wait, did we watch Princess Mononoke in Japanese?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, and just because I think we started it and just didn't like the
We watched Nazca sub too, right?
No, that was dubbed.
Did we watch it dubbed?
Because Nazca has Uma Thurman in it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think a couple of them have Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson's in Ponyo, and I think he might also be in Nazca. So yeah, like some of them have great casts. I mean, I am not like anti-dub on principle. I am anti-dub in practice because I think in principle you can make a good dub. You can make a dub that's enjoyable enough that I will be like, you know what, this won't be perfectly accurate to the original, but I won't have to read it. So that's good, which means I can get as blitzed as I possibly can and I'll still know what's happening. But nonetheless, like, sometimes I'll watch them in Japanese just if I don't think the dub seems all that good, you know. But yeah, I would say that Disney does the best job dubbing because they hire actual actors as opposed to the same 10 people who have done every single dub in the last 25 years, you know. Yeah, next question. Yes?
So, still Ghibli related, what's your least favorite Ghibli film?
I mean, I haven't seen the one that everyone hates, Tales from the Earth Sea. So my least favorite is probably currently Castle in the Sky. And I know a lot of people like that movie. I just think it's like really long and the pacing is like, I don't know. I've only seen it a couple times and not recently, so I don't want to say too much. I don't want to like watch it and again be like, oh, I was wrong all these years. Castle in the Sky was great. Because again, I was not a Miyazaki fan until more recently. But yeah, that movie always just felt like way too long in the middle to me. Like, the ending's really great, but the whole leading up to that, I'm always just like, get to the castle. I want to see the castle. Next. You?
Are you? Me? Or
Yeah, you.
Are you surprised that Chivalry of a Failed Knight still hasn't gotten a second season, yet pretty much its counterpart, Astro's War, has already gotten it and has confirmed season 3?
They confirmed season 3?
That's what my friend told me. He watches that religiously.
I haven't heard about that. I don't think that's true. If there was a confirmed season 3, people would have been hitting me on Twitter all day about it. There's a lot of fake news about anime seasons. If you go to the Canapa Effect, another YouTuber, has a great video about all the false flagging season 2s and 3s that happen, where like basically anytime a popular show comes out, a bunch of people will spread a rumor that a new season's coming. Other people will report on the rumor without citing source, and it just spreads through Twitter for a little while, and then everybody's like, oh, I heard, like this happened with One Punch Man and Tokyo Ghoul. Like eventually those did get season 2 announcements and Attack on Titan, but all of them were like fake announced way beforehand. So people were like, oh, season 2 of Attack on Titan, I heard it was coming this fall. And I'm like, I've heard nothing about that. And so I know it's not true because I would have heard about it. But, I mean, Astroscore is possible. I would just be shocked. But they planned for 2 seasons from the beginning. So Astroscore was originally just a split course show. It wasn't so much that they made a first season, it was successful, and they made a second one. They just planned from the start to make it 2, but they split them across 2 different seasons. So from what I heard, I don't think it was that huge of a financial success, though it does seem to be popular in the West for some reason. Because the light novels and manga come out here, and they're still coming out, so people are buying them. I don't know, man. Sometimes I look at the shelves at Barnes & Noble and I'm like, well, I should just kill myself because this world's not living in. You guys have to rock, paper, scissors for it.
We'll do a long distance. No 2 out of 3, just 1, right? Alright. I was doing the little thing with rock, paper, scissors.
You gotta film them.
On shoot.
Okay, ready? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Alright. JoJo.
Yeah. Are there any like what genre of anime do you feel has like the most potential not to like degrade as, you know? I mean, like, is there any genre currently that gives you like hope for the future of anime?
Ooh, a genre? Not so much genres as studios. I mean, like whatever Studio Trigger's genre can be called gives me hope. Like I don't know what that's called.
Do you like Franks?
Darling in the Franxx? Yeah. No. Not the way I see it. I feel like Darling in the Franxx. I think I said this somewhere last night, but I don't remember where. I don't know where I've been or what I've done. I don't know who I said this to, but I was explaining to someone that Darling in the Franxx to me is like Studio Trigger came to A1 Pictures and said, hey, we tried to make this show Kisniver that was like really emotional and had like all these teen characters. I didn't explain this before, right?
No.
Okay, you're all just looking at me like, stop me if you've heard this, because I really don't know who I told this to. It was like today, and then I cracked the same joke. But and I'm like, who could I have told this to? I don't remember.
It was last night.
The way I see it, Darling in the Franxx is like, Trigger was like, hey, we made this show Kisniver. It's got like it's got a script by Mari Okada. The kids seem to love her. We got beautiful character designs. All the characters are like teenagers and they're gorgeous. We've had the best art design. We've got amazing animation. Kisniver was like the most beautiful show, but nobody watched it. What did we do wrong? We made it too weird. So Trigger goes to their building mates, A1 Pictures, and they said, hey, can you like help us make a show and just like tone down the trigger a little bit, like make it normal kind of, and like a little milquetoast so that people will like sit through it. And they're like, yeah, we can do that for you. And that's Darling in the Franxx. That's how I look at it anyway. Because to me it feels like if you took Trigger and had like little elements of what they obviously did, like the sex robot thing. How many of you have watched Darling in the Franxx? Because like the cockpit is like, there's like, the girl's like bent over and the guy is like literally, like, you know, this is how they pilot the robot. Which is why I think the show the show needed to be called Fuckers in the Franxx. Let's be real. But they didn't, because it's not Trigger. Trigger would have called it that, and Trigger would have made it like 10 3-minute shorts that are just people having sex in a robot and screaming and blowing things up. Like, that would have been Imaishi's vision of Fuckers in the Franxx. But unfortunately, we got Darling in the Franxx, which I just see as like, in between the really racy, crazy stuff is like a bunch of teenagers standing around talking in a house. And when I watch like Kill La Kill, in between the crazy stuff is crazy other stuff, like just a different brand of crazy stuff. And like, so to me, Franxx is just too tame. It's just like, I'd rather go watch one of the other things this company did that will constantly entertain me as opposed to for maybe 3 minutes out of every episode, you know? But I'm just a picky.
Is that really what the rest of the anime is? I watched the first 3 and like I didn't drop it.
I only watched the first 3 too, so it's so much better. I know as much as you do. No, I've heard it gets better. I was planning to watch more just because like so many people keep insisting but every time that happens I end up hating it. Like ReZero, everyone insisted got better, and Erased, everyone insisted got better, and I hated it.
You finished Erased? Oh man.
No, I did.
Oh.
I have the most controversial video I've ever made. It's called "Erased Was Never That Good," which has about a 60% dislike. So I understand where you're coming from, but no, I was not a fan of Erased at all.
I have to watch that video.
If it means anything, you gave me plenty of material to troll my friends with.
Oh yeah, with that video?
Yeah.
I met my wife through that video. She found out about me because she thought I sounded cooler than Mother's Basement when we argued about it. She was like a fan. She was like, "Oh, Mother's Basement, he's cool. Let me watch this video he's got about Erased. Oh, he's wrong about everything. This Digibro guy seems cool though." Next question? Beer. No, beer.
Okay. You didn't go to the trigger Q. No, the trigger thing earlier.
Yeah, the
They
one
talked
from
about,
earlier.
hey, this is why things are the way they are and down things.
Oh, did they explain that?
A little bit.
What did they say?
Well, the guy, who was those? He didn't like mechas. He didn't like them at all. So they're like, let's put an anime girl's face on the mecha. And he's like, okay, let's do this.
Let's not make it mecha, let's just make it kind of.
I actually thought it was.
Who did the
I saw
mecha
that.
designs for Who did the mecha designs for Donnie the Thing? Do you know? Does
I
anybody
forgot.
know? It's not one of the guys who's here, is it? It's
is.
not. Is it Shigeto Koyama?
Pretty sure it is, yeah.
Okay, because he also designed. He designed the final form of the robot from
Big Hero 6.
Oh,
Baymax,
yeah, B-Max. That's the name.
Baymax.
Betamax? I've never seen it. All I know is he designed that robot, and the Darling in the Franxx robots, the whole face thing kind of reminds me of that. So that might be it might be onto something there with that thing that is obviously true because the guy literally said it like 3 hours ago, and it's not something you made up at all. The next question, yes, Kate.
This is a quote, by the way.
Whoa.
You've often said that you like to live your life as a meta-narrative or like a meme. Now, would you
I don't know if I said I like to live my life so much as just
Well,
that I
you
do live my life.
That actually is my question. Would you say you do that because you find some sort of like it's a cause greater than yourself, you're happy with it, or you do that because I feel there's nothing else I can do, I feel like life is pointless, just living life ironically is all that I can do.
I think you overestimate how intentionally I will live in me. I mean, yeah, I mean, not everything I say do I expect to be controversial. Like, a lot of the controversy surrounding me is stuff that to me seems like fairly innocuous. Like, I don't like how Mario Odyssey looks. And then, like, 10... This guy is like literally. This is like a Digibro commenter in the making.
Every single video.
I had a tweet where I was just like, look, I don't like the aesthetic of Mario Odyssey. I think I'm not a fan. I think the other games look better. And I got like somehow this tweet. So sometimes this thing happens where a tweet you make escapes from your followers and the people who know who you are and like appreciate the context surrounding the things you say into just the broad Twitter sphere. It just gets picked up by other communities who have no idea who you are and instantly hate you because you just said that Mario Odyssey looks ugly and that's all they know about you.
And then it makes it to the point where it goes to Reddit and then Facebook.
Exactly, and then it just goes everywhere. So when I made these statements, it like blew up on Twitter. All these people were like hounding me, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, there's two ways I can go about this. Either I can just make some vlog addressing this, or well, there's three ways. Either I can not respond, which was the way I should have done it, or I can make a vlog explaining in brief, or I can make a full-blown, huge analysis video that would prove all my points with in-depth research and logic, and people would have to agree. And I figured I don't have to do that because Matthew Matosis is going to do that. The YouTuber Matthew Matosis, who does super in-depth videos on whole gaming franchises, he has like 45-minute videos on every 3D Mario. So Obviously, he's going to carve a Mario Odyssey. And I thought, hey, this guy has a similar sense of aesthetics to me. Surely he's going to call it out, so I won't have to. I'll just make a quick vlog. Bad idea. Made a quick vlog called Mario Odyssey is Ugly as Sin, in all caps. In which I came in and I was like, hey, this isn't an analytical video, this is just me ranting, but hey, Mario Odyssey looks really bad. Overwhelming dislike bar. Way more views than it ever should have gotten. And I'm just like, why do I talk? Why do I open? I quit Twitter for like a month after that. I had to lay low. So that was not me attempting to be a living meme. That was just me having an opinion about Mario Odyssey that was not the same opinion that everyone else had. And therefore, being driven from house and home and from what's something else that I could say I was driven from? That sounds dramatic. I don't know. Someone, any questions? Do you know?
Oh, on the two Andrews, I understand why you look up to Andrew Hussey so much.
Yeah.
But I've done some research on WK.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. So what is he to you?
Andrew WK. Has anyone here heard of Andrew WK? Yeah. Any fans? Anybody a fan? He's a musician who blew up in the year 2000. Okay, first of all, Andrew WK is a really fascinating character. He has a lot of weird history because he's a guy who started off as a member of like a noise rock band in Michigan. And he was into like weird experimental music, but then suddenly he became this, he's literally a living meme. He is a living meme. He became this party guy. He's like a god of the concept of the party. He's obsessed with party, everything in his life is a party, and everything in life is a party to him. If you follow his Twitter, you'll get gold like, just pissed on my hand, life is a party, everything's amazing. That's the kind of stuff he tweets all the time. And but basically the point of his ethos was not necessarily to actually party all the time, but to treat everything as though it were a party and, sort of just have fun all the time. But the dude, he's got, long hair, not unkempt. He doesn't wash his hair, by the way. Had a whole thing about how, apparently, if you don't wash your hair for long enough, then your natural oils will start taking care of it. I tried for about a month and a half. My scalp turned into a volcano. My dandruff was so bad that I was bleeding from my head at all times. It was really bad. So don't look up to Andrew WK too hard if you have dandruff. But he wears all white. He's always wearing white jeans and a white t-shirt, and he has tattoos that are just straight black lines on his arms.
You can't wear black.
Huh?
You can't wear black because of the dandruff.
Yeah, because of the dandruff, exactly. Things got weird in the mid-2000s because he started just being a personality who just is around. He hosted Destroy, Build, Destroy on Cartoon Network out of nowhere. And then he was just doing a bunch of weird shows. He would show up on people's internet shows all the time. And the weird thing is he's not even a good personality. He's not good at talking. So they would put him in shows and stuff, and he'd just be like, I guess we're gonna have a big party today. That's how he talks. There was a period when the Brony community first took off where he became convinced that he was the reincarnation of Pinkie Pie, the character. He actually has a t-shirt, which is pretty awesome, that I have, that's got Pinkie Pie bleeding from the face, and it says "Party Hard" like his album, which is pretty awesome. He actually went to Brony conventions and gave speeches about how he was Pinkie Pie's reincarnation as the new party god. Because in the show, Pinkie Pie is the party god, so that's why. That's why he did that. So yeah, he's just a really interesting character, but because of his mindset of constant exuberance, I've always sort of looked up to him, and I just have this meme that one of the writers on My Little Pony is a guy who had said that he had this wall of photos of all of his favorite writers as inspirations. And he just tweeted a picture of it, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I want to do that too. Except mine is just going to be the two Andrews, Andrew WK and Andrew Hussey, the guy who wrote Homestuck, who I look up to because of his insane work ethic, which was 6 pages a day every day for fucking years. Sorry about all the swearing. Anyway, the next question. That's all I have to say about Andrew WK.
Should be the last question.
In the back, huh?
Should be the last question. If that's
okay.
What's your opinion of all the live action adaptations that have been coming out lately?
All of the what adaptations?
Live action. adaptations?
Live action adaptations of anime?
Yeah.
I don't think there's been like more lately than usual. There's kind of always been just like a slow trickle of weird anime live action adaptations. Sometimes they can be surprisingly good, especially the TV shows like the J-dramas and stuff, where oftentimes it's adapting just as much of the manga as the anime is, and is, you know, can be just as good. I know a lot of the a lot of the anime aimed at or manga aimed at women, like Honey and Clover and stuff, had really successful TV dramas as well. As for films, though, they usually come out bad just because they're trying to adapt a long-form story into a short-form film.
Death Note.
And dress up a bunch of people as anime characters. To me, most of those movies are out the second I look at it, and I'm like, oh, the Fullmetal Alchemist movie looks really stupid. I'm not gonna watch it. Some of them are okay though. The Rurouni Kenshin movies are fun. So I guess that was my last question.
It's 5.
5?
Yeah.
Is it 5 minutes left or?
No, it's 5 o'clock.
Oh, alright. Well, that's it. I'll see you all in room whatever for the